Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 179 based on novel. So let's start. The Ice Bear King was very innocent. He appeared very foolish, but was very determined. Even though he knew that the Snow Empress had lost her original body, he still listened to her, precisely because she had saved him and brought him up. He treated the Snow Empress like his mother, and treated Hui Yuhao as his grandfather. If the Ice Bear King was in a life-or-death situation and Hui Yuhao only stood by one side watching, how could he be fit to be the Ice Bear King's partner? This was why Hui Yuhao didn't hesitate at all. To him, any price he had to pay was nothing compared to that clear feeling in his heart. He was willing to take the risk for little Bai. However, he wasn't completely irrational. He wanted to rely on the reverse scale. Although he didn't know whether it could resist the lightning, he still did it willingly. As the ball-shaped lightning fell from the sky, the terrifying natural chi instantly engulfed Hui Yuhao. The Snow Empress wanted to rush over, but was flung away by the immense natural chi. The Ice Bear King was filled with astonishment. He had collapsed on the ground and clearly sensed his life dissipating away. He also clearly saw how that ball of lightning completely engulfed Hui Yuhao, who was so small compared to him, but appeared so tall and mighty in midair right now. Grandpa, Little Bai was sobbing. He could no longer remain as calm as he was before. Two big beads of tears rolled down from the sides of his eyes. He could clearly sense the concern that came from Hui Yuhao. Yuhao, the Snow Empress shouted. At this moment, she was also filled with astonishment. It was her first time seeing a human risking everything to save a soul beast. Even if he had the beast god's reverse scale, how could he be sure that the beast god would appear at this moment to save him? Moreover, this was the spectral demiplane, not the Dolor continent. Even if Di Qian was here, could he do anything? Before any answer was known, Hui Yuhao still charged over without hesitation. What did this show? It showed his attachment to Little Bai. If he was already like that to Little Bai, how would he treat the Snow Empress, the Ice Empress, and the Sky Dream Ice Worm? It would naturally be better. At this moment, the Snow Empress was filled with gratitude. She wasn't just grateful that Hui Yuhao had saved Little Bai. She was also grateful that he had shown her the kind side of humans. The Snow Empress knew that if Hui Yuhao survived this ordeal, she and the other spirits would no longer have any other barriers with him anymore. A sonorous dragon roar eventually sounded out. However, the voice also sounded like it was in torment. A pitch-black glow spread out and engulfed all the lightning. Hui Yuhao fell from the sky and crashed to the ground. In the sky, a pitch-black dragon claw remained in mid-air and grabbing towards the catastrophic clouds. At the same time, a furious voice sounded, Hui Yuhao, you are really courting death. If you die in the forest, I could still steal your destiny. You rascal. The Snow Empress smiled. However, the smile only lasted for a moment before it froze in place. That was because of the claw. The claw grabbed towards the sky. The catastrophic clouds were so strong that they had almost killed the Ice Bear King. However, they were crushed by the claw. Dragon. Gods. Claw, the Snow Empress said, word by word. At the same time, she also took the opportunity to vanish into Hui Yuhao's body just as Di Qian was too distracted to notice. Right now, Hui Yuhao felt as if his body was about to disintegrate. However, he wasn't in pain, because he was completely numb at this point. All his bones, muscles, passageways and even his spiritual seat were numb at this point. However, what he found very surprising was that he felt an itch. It was both uncomfortable and comfortable at the same time. What was going on? The catastrophic clouds disappeared. The beast god's voice sounded once again. Yuhao, what are you doing? Why is there a lightning catastrophe? How dare you use your own body to get in the way of a lightning catastrophe? If you do this one more time, you can go and die. Di Qian was indeed infuriated. Although he had used his claw to destroy the catastrophe, he was the one who suffered the greatest impact of the lightning when he was summoned by the reverse scale. It was important to know that it was the last stage of the catastrophe, which was when it unleashed its strongest attack. Even a 300,000-year soul beast like the Ice Bear King couldn't handle it. Diqian rushed over using spatial power, and suffered such a strong attack immediately. It was understandable how much pain he was in. He was really hurt. Hui Yuhao revealed a smile on his face and touched his completely charred hair. He chortled, "Beast God, thanks. I was just helping a friend. If I didn't, he would have died." What? The dragon claw disappeared. A near-transparent black projection surfaced in mid-air. Diqian couldn't truly transcend time and arrive here with his real body, especially since they weren't on the Dolor continent. The fact that he was able to do even this much fully demonstrated his deep understanding of spatial power. Regarding that fact, Hui Yuhao was truly petrified. Diqian was much stronger than he had imagined. Diqian looked around, and revealed a weird look on his face. What is this place? It's not the Dolor continent. It seems to be a parallel spatial dimension. Is this a demiplane? How is this possible? Was this a demiplane created by a mortal being? As Diqian spoke, the astonishment in his voice became more and more obvious. In the Dolor continent, he recognized himself as the strongest existence. He was also the closest to becoming a god. His senses were far more acute than any other ultimate Dolor or savage beast. It was because of his sensitivity, especially towards spatial power, that he was able to become the strongest out of the 10 great savage beasts in the Dolor continent. Even so, he wasn't completely confident in creating such a demiplane. This wasn't a complete plane, because he couldn't sense a complete ecology in this plane. There was no aura of the gods in this demiplane, either. This also meant that it had to be the work of a mortal being. If that was the case, how strong was the person who had created this plane? At the very least, the beast god was inferior to him. It seemed like there was someone stronger than him, someone who was between a god and him that existed. To him, this wasn't a huge blow. Rather, it was an exciting discovery. It had been a while since Diqian had the motivation to cultivate. It was because he clearly knew that he couldn't possibly become a god, even if he worked harder. He could only maintain his current state. However, after witnessing the existence of such a demiplane, how could he not be delighted? If his abilities could increase such that he could create such a demiplane, would he be able to survive the next catastrophe and possibly live for another 100,000 years? After realizing all this, Diqian was suddenly very motivated. The fury he had for Hui Yuhao earlier also mostly dissipated. When he turned his attention to Hui Yuhao again, he naturally noticed the Ice Bear King. An ice-type savage beast with a 300,000-year cultivation. Are you from the extreme north? The beast god was a little puzzled as he looked at the Ice Bear King. The Ice Bear King didn't utter a sound. Right now, he was only looking at Hui Yuhao. There was a look of closeness in his eyes, as if he were looking at his own father or kin. The beast god was very powerful. He knew from the look in the Ice Bear King's eyes that Hui Yuhao had been resisting the attack on his behalf. The astonishment that the Snow Empress experienced earlier came to him, too. Although the Ice Bear King didn't come from the Great Star Doe Forest, he was also a soul beast. Diqian considered himself the king of all soul beasts in the Dolor continent. All soul beasts were like his people. When he saw how Hui Yuhao had risked his life to save a savage beast, his anger dissipated even further. Hui Yuhao asked Diqian, "Beast god, can you save him? He's critically hurt from resisting the lightning catastrophe." Diqian descended from the sky and landed beside Hui Yuhao. He only took a few glances at the Ice Bear King before he said, "I can't save him. His origin is greatly damaged from resisting the lightning catastrophe, and his soul core has also cracked. The only way to save him now is to make him your spirit." How has your soul power reached rank 80 so quickly? Although Diqian's reverse scale was on Hui Yuhao's body, he could only sense what was going on whenever Hui Yuhao felt the aura in the godly realm, or when he was in danger. He couldn't monitor Hui Yuhao all the time. Right now, he was shocked to realize that Hui Yuhao was already at rank 80. This fellow's cultivation is increasing too quickly. Is there really no way? Hui Yuhao asked anxiously, "You've overcome 8 catastrophes. You're so experienced. Come, save him." Di Qian snorted and said, "Given my current status, why would I lie to you? If I can't save him, I can't. Aren't you rank 80 now? Quickly, fuse with him. Otherwise, it'll be too late. Since you saved him, I'm sure he's willing to become your spirit." After hearing Di Qian's words, Little Bai was already nodding repeatedly before Hui Yuhao even opened his mouth. Not only was there a look of excitement in his eyes, but there was even great eagerness. Hui Yuhao knew that there was no other way. If even Di Qian couldn't save him, Little Bai wouldn't be able to live. He pursed his lips, and then nodded at Little Bai. Little Bai's eyes brightened immediately. It was as if he experienced a surge of energy just before he died. He forcibly turned himself around and bowed in front of Hui Yuhao. Di Qian said, "Begin then. I'll protect you. After you fuse with him, I have something important to ask you." "Thanks." Hui Yuhao didn't say much. After he expressed his gratitude, he immediately started to recite the incantations for an equal contract. In terms of fusing with spirits, Hui Yuhao had the greatest experience out of all soul masters. He was the person who had established the profession of a spirit transmission master, and the pagoda master of the spirit pagoda. A formation gradually appeared below Hui Yuhao and the Ice Bear King. Hui Yuhao sensed the Ice Bear King's intent and slowly released his spiritual power, summoning him. The Ice Bear King slowly lifted one of his front paws and extended a finger to Hui Yuhao. His finger was too thick. Even when Hui Yuhao placed his entire palm on the Ice Bear King's finger, it couldn't even cover the fingertip. A gentle icy blue light rippled from the Ice Bear King's body. He was a savage beast that had survived 2 catastrophes. After experiencing this lightning catastrophe, he was technically a savage beast that had been through 3 catastrophes. It was just that he could survive no longer. A dim blue glow also appeared on Hui Yuhao's body. "Eh?" When he saw the changes to Hui Yuhao's body, Di Qian exclaimed gently in surprise. However, he didn't say anything further. The icy blue glow released from Little Bai's body turned into rings that engulfed Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao was stunned to realize that Little Bai's origin strength was completely compatible with his. There wasn't any rejection during the fusion process at all. He also didn't feel bloated because Little Bai's origin strength was too great. After he fused Little Bai's strength into his body, it quickly fused with his soul power. It even helped to absorb the manifold mysterious ice essence in his blood. Hui Yuhao turned ice blue. The 7 soul rings of his Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion also gradually surfaced. Red, orange, 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 red, and red. 7 soul rings shone brightly. In a normal fight, Hui Yuhao wouldn't reveal the colors of his soul rings. It was equivalent to telling his opponents that he was extraordinary. However, there was nothing he could do about it right now. He definitely didn't dare to be careless, and did his best for this fusion. His soul rings were thus in their original form and color. Di Qian's pupils shrank a little. He was in awe. This kid is indeed extraordinary. No wonder he can attract the calls of the godly realm. I must monitor him more closely. No matter what, I can't let him bring the aura of the Destiny God Beast into the godly realm. The Ice Bear King's body slowly collapsed, and his life aura slowly disappeared. A brand new red soul ring with 3 golden patterns slowly rose from his feet. From this moment on, Hui Yuhao had truly become a soul de luo. He was now an 8-ringed soul de luo. Even Hui Yuhao didn't expect his ultimate ice martial soul to be the first to reach 8 rings. In fact, it was becoming increasingly more difficult to add soul rings to his main martial soul. It was too difficult to find a spiritual-type soul beast. Furthermore, as the number of spirits he had increased, Hui Yuhao became even less willing to kill soul beasts to increase the number of soul rings he had. This fusion provided enough strength that his Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion no longer needed any soul rings. This wasn't a small thing. If his spiritual seed couldn't handle the spiritual strength of his spirits, everything would be for naught. The impact on him would also be very great, and it might be a possibility that his spiritual seed would be crushed. It wasn't possible for someone to replicate the method by which Hui Hao had fused with 5 spirits. He was only able to do so because his spiritual power was in the concrete material realm, and also because he possessed the 3-eyed golden lion skull of destiny, as well as his spirit eye soul core. The icy blue glow slowly faded. Hui Hao only felt that he was continuously improving. The soul power in his body kept on rising. The pleasure of experiencing a breakthrough made him feel as if he were about to fly. His body was filled with strength. The remaining manifold mysterious ice essence instantly melted and fused into his body. The Ice Bear King's body was already stiff. His life aura had completely vanished. However, a brand new life was slowly taking form in Hui Hao's body. Little Bai's spirit was slowly forming. The Ice Bear King was a soul beast who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Logically speaking, he should be able to give Hui Hao a soul bone. But Hui Hao was stunned that no soul bone appeared. It was just his spirit that formed. A red 8th soul ring fully demonstrated the strength of a 100,000-year soul beast. He slowly stood up and looked at the Ice Bear King's massive corpse. Hui Hao couldn't help but sigh. Little Bai, I still couldn't help you in the end. In fact, Hui Hao didn't want Little Bai to be his spirit after he developed feelings for him. By becoming his spirit, it meant that Little Bai would lose his body. To a certain extent, he was dead. Hui Hao wasn't fully confident of becoming a god. If he was able to help Little Bai overcome his bottleneck, he would have been able to live for another 100,000 years. Just as Hui Hao was feeling a little down, the beast god Dai Qian suddenly exclaimed in astonishment, "Oh, what's going on?" Undead. Hui Hao thought that some specters were venturing towards them. He wanted to take a look, but he was shocked to realize that Little Bai's charred corpse had actually moved. After this, the corpse gradually sat up. This? Hui Hao was wide-eyed in shock as he looked at Little Bai. Little Bai straightened his back. His body was still gigantic, but the charred bit started to fall off his body. After this, he let out a deep roar. His roar was very special. Compared to his original roar, it was much sharper and weirder. However, the specters that thought that things had returned to normal following the lightning catastrophe actually looked in his direction. After this, Hui Hao sensed some kind of special strength gathering in this direction and into Little Bai's body. His aura was increasing at an alarming speed. As the charred bits fell off of his body, Little Bai's skin grew a layer of greyish fur, still flashing with dim blue light. Little Bai's eyes also turned grey, and a weird glow kept on transforming him. Has he become an undead? Hui Hao muttered to himself in shock. Dai Qian nodded and said, "It seems so. It seems that he has been restricted by this world. It's the work of this demiplane. Even after he became your spirit, it seems like some of his spirit is still in his own body." After that, his body slowly transformed into an undead. He was originally a savage beast, which means he was very strong, and his body is still resilient enough. Although he was lethally hurt earlier, he seems to have become stronger after becoming undead. His aura isn't weak at all. Hui Hao revealed a bitter smile on his face. He didn't know whether it was a good thing that Little Bai had become undead. At this moment, a white light flashed. Little Bai, who had turned into his human form, appeared beside Hui Hao. When he saw his original body was roaring into the sky, he was also astonished. He had just completed the spirit fusion, and still hadn't sensed the changes to his own body before this situation surfaced. As the beast god was around, the Snow Empress couldn't appear. As a result, Little Bai ran out on his own. Hui Hao was astonished as he asked Little Bai, "Little Bai, what's going on? Can you sense the changes to your body?" Little Bai replied, "Grandpa, I'll try." As he spoke, he shut his eyes, and the gentle power of his spiritual origin cautiously extended towards his body. His body, which was absorbing the spectral aura from the demiplane, immediately sensed it when Little Bai tried to reach over. His body immediately turned around and looked back at him. As the 4 eyes met, Little Bai and his spectral body shook. In the next moment, Little Bai revealed a delighted look on his face. "Boss, I've connected with it. It's still me. I can sense my own aura." Hui Yuhao was confused, and scratched his head. He asked, "What's going on?" Little Bai replied, "It seems like I was restricted by the rules of this world when I tried to become your spirit. A streak of my spirit still remains in my body. Without me controlling my own body, it started to change according to the rules of this world. That's what happened. I should be a vampire, as humans would call it. However, I feel stronger even though I'm a vampire now, especially my body. However, I need to absorb more energy first. I already told you that I love this place. It's great, I can live as two entities now. This is amazing." Hui Yuhao was also in a bit of a daze. He didn't know whether this was a good or a bad thing. However, since it had already happened, and Little Bai could connect to his own body, things were already considered not too bad. At least he wouldn't be attacked. If Little Bai's corpse was even stronger than Little Bai was originally, it wouldn't have an opponent in this demiplane, and could rule the entire place. It was indeed not a bad thing. Hui Yuhao nodded and said, "It's good as long as you're fine. Little Bai, return to my body first and let me sense the changes. You've just become my spirit. You can't waste too much of your origin strength." "All right." Little Bai immediately agreed. He disappeared into Hui Yuhao's body after staring at Hui Yuhao with a stirring look in his eyes. Hui Yuhao turned to the beast god. Di Qian was annoyed as he said with a weird expression, "Hui Yuhao, you're becoming more and more unclear to me. Tell me about the history of this demiplane. It couldn't have just appeared out of thin air. How did you find this place?" After pondering for a moment, Hui Yuhao decided to tell the truth. There was no point in hiding things from Di Qian. Although his reverse scale had restricted his connection with the godly realm, Di Qian had still saved him on many occasions. Hui Yuhao didn't like him, but he didn't hate him either. He only treated him as a target that he wanted to reach in the future. This demiplane was created by a teacher of mine. He was called Electrolux, the divine law of necromancy. He was a noble existence that hailed from another world. Hui Yuhao recounted how he had managed to fuse with Electrolux, and how he was guided by him, gaining strong necromantic abilities in the process. Di Qian didn't doubt him at all or pose any questions. He only listened seriously. The divine law of necromancy came from another world. Electrolux even had his own divine sense. All these were considered rather inspirational to Di Qian. Regarding this, Hui Yuhao didn't think it was critical. Even if Di Qian learned anything from this, he couldn't become a god. "All right, you've told me everything I need to know. This demiplane is rather good. You must preserve it well. It can become part of your power. Given your current abilities, you can already use it to a great extent. You must be careful in the future. Stop getting into trouble, I can't always save you. Do you understand?" Di Qian said seriously. "Yes. Thank you, Elder Di Qian, for saving my life." Hui Yuhao nodded at Di Qian. The projection that was Di Qian disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. It just vanished into thin air. Hui Yuhao was secretly in awe. Elder Di Qian is indeed the strongest existence on the continent. When can my control of spatial power reach his standard? Little Bai's corpse was still absorbing the spectral power in the demiplane to transform itself. Hui Yuhao didn't dare to stay too long, as he still had things to attend to. If not for the fact that Little Bai had suddenly faced an urgent problem, he would have already tidied himself up and gotten ready to leave for Shrek Academy. When Hui Yuhao returned to the Tang sect and his own room, he was feeling depressed. The reason was very simple. His hair. Was that heavenly lightning so easily resisted? Even though Hui Yuhao wasn't clear about what kind of effect the lightning had on his body, he could clearly see the frazzled hairs on his head right now. His hair was neither long nor short. It just reached his shoulders. Now that it was all sticking out like a porcupine. He couldn't even press it down. How could he see anyone like this? He couldn't help it, he had to take a bath again. Enough water finally restored his hair to normal. However, as he was struck by lightning, his hair was still curly after returning to normal. But the effect wasn't that bad. At least he didn't become ugly. Looking at the sky outside, it was already dark. Hu Hao quickly dressed in the new clothes that Bei Bei had given him. They fit well. He was wearing a white warrior robe, which only had a few accessories. However, many parts of the robe were made from silk. Even though the robe was white, it refracted light to differing degrees, and made Hu Hao look very elegant in it. Hu Hao also felt more energized and refreshed as he donned the robe. At this moment, Hu Hao felt his first sense of excitement after fusing with Little Bai as his fifth spirit. This excitement didn't come from his spirit, but from the fact that he was now an 8-ringed soul Doluo. A soul Doluo was only inferior to titled Doluo. Hu Hao was barely 20 years old. No one in the history of Shrek Academy was able to achieve what he had at this age. Zhong Leshuan became a soul Doluo when she was 30, and she was already the pride of Shrek Academy back then. Hu Hao shuddered when he thought of her. He didn't dare to delay any further. He didn't even bother with eating, and quickly rushed towards Shrek Academy. If he was late, she might be infuriated with him. He couldn't afford to offend her, he still had to graduate. Hu Hao rushed all the way to Shrek Academy. School had already ended, and the students were all streaming out. The gates of the academy were far more crowded than they were when he had entered for his first time, so long ago. Due to the expansion of Shrek City, the entire academy was now a busy area. It took some effort to squeeze through the gates. Just as he was prepared to enter the academy, he heard some students discussing something. I heard there'll be a Sea God's fated blind date in the inner courtyard tonight, on the Sea God's lake. Furthermore, this year's fated blind date is different from previous years. Even those not from the inner courtyard are allowed to observe the event. This is unprecedented, but I'm not sure what the reason for it is. I'm sure you don't. My cousin is from the inner courtyard. This time, the Sea God's fated blind date is open to outer courtyard disciples because it's being used as a way to stimulate us to work harder. It's only by working hard and becoming an inner courtyard disciple that we can participate in a Sea God's fated blind date. It's important to know that our seniors who take part in the blind dates are extremely talented. It would be great to have such a partner. Furthermore, I've heard that the success rate is high. A lot of seniors were unwilling to reveal their feelings when they were still in the outer courtyard. They can take this chance to reveal them all. Of course, I've also heard that it's important for one to be strong enough if they want to achieve anything in the blind date. Yes, we need to work hard. I'm going to work hard. One day, I must stand on the Sea God's lake and participate in the Sea God's fated blind date. Let's go and get something to eat quick. We'll rush back after we finish eating and get a good spot. Otherwise, we won't be able to see anything. You don't know what I'm going to do. I'm prepared to buy a magnifying soul tool. With that thing, I can even see the sleeves of our seniors clearly. In addition, it's not that expensive, either. The Tang sect has just released a new batch of them. Do you want one? What? There's something as good as that? Of course I want it. I can still use it to peep at girls in the future. As he listened up to that point, Hu Hao became nostalgic. I really didn't expect outer courtyard students to be allowed to observe the fated blind date. It seems those two juniors are right. Permitting them to observe the event can help stimulate their cultivation. This isn't really a bad thing. It feels so much better than when I just joined the academy. How great would it be if I could watch the Sea God's fated blind date with Donga? As he thought of Wang Donga, Hu Hao felt a bit of heartache, and gently shook his head. He quickened his pace as he headed towards the inner academy. The academy was very crowded. Hu Hao put his student badge on his chest, so no one stopped him. However, he knew fewer of the students now that a few batches had graduated. At most, a few students thought that he was dressed rather weirdly, because almost all the students took pride in wearing the uniform of the academy. When Hu Hao made his way to the shore of Sea God's Lake, he was stunned to realize that the sky was still bright. It was barely evening, but there were already people seated at the better spots. He came to a spot on the shore that was close to the lake itself, and saw a young outer courtyard student just settling down. There was a mat that could seat more than 10 people on the ground. He seemed to have just finished setting it up, and the edges of the mat were pressed down with various items. After he finished, he tidied up the mat as he sat down in satisfaction on it. Hui Yuhao smiled and said, "Junior, why are you taking up so much space?" The outer courtyard student didn't even lift his head and replied, "Who says that I'm alone? I'm here to reserve seats for others. There's more than 10 of us. They went to get some food, and will be back soon." Hui Yuhao laughed, "All of you have indeed allocated your duties well." That student laughed in return, "Yes. If we don't come early, we won't have good spots. We're already so tired from cultivating every day. This is a good opportunity to relax. All of us treasure this opportunity. It's excellent to be able to witness how our seniors are going to seek love. We came here to set our own targets." Hui Yuhao smiled and said, "It's good that you're not here just to skive. However, it's also good to take a breather every now and then." Oh. This outer courtyard student felt something amiss when he heard how Hui Yuhao was advising him. He lifted his head and looked at him. Hui Yuhao's robe caught a lot of attention. After that, he saw the badge on Hui Yuhao's chest. The badge given to the inner courtyard disciples was red. There was also an image of a Shrek monster on it. It was extremely obvious on Hui Yuhao's white robe. Ah. A senior from the inner courtyard. Are you a senior from the inner courtyard? The outer courtyard student was immediately impressed. The inner courtyard disciples in Shrek Academy were highly respected. They were even more respected than some teachers in the outer courtyard. After all, inner courtyard disciples all had at least 5 soul rings. The more outstanding ones even had 7 rings. If this was the outer courtyard, they would already be a dean. Furthermore, they were all young and extremely talented. The outer courtyard students were already talented, and the inner courtyard students were even more so. Normally, inner courtyard students rarely interacted with outer courtyard students, as they were very busy with their cultivation. So this outer courtyard student was very excited when he met an inner courtyard disciple. Hui Yuhao smiled and replied, "Yes. Nice to meet you, Junior." The outer courtyard student jumped up excitedly. "Senior, I'm called Jin Sho. My friends call me Sandbag. You can call me that, too. Are you going to see God's Island?" Hui Yuhao nodded. The outer courtyard student was shaking with excitement as he asked, "Will you be going to the Sea God Pavilion's blind date tonight?" Hui Yuhao smiled. "It's the Sea God's fated blind date. You've said something wrong." I'm too excited." I was at a loss for words. Hui Yuhao nodded and said, "I'll be there." "Wow, that's great. Senior, I envy you so much. I wonder when I can participate?" Jin Sho said excitedly. Hui Yuhao saw his uniform. He was a year 3 or 4 student. From his soul power undulations, it seemed like he had 3 rings. "You'll get your chance if you work hard. Let's work hard together, Junior. I'll go and register first. If we're fated to meet again, we'll meet each other again." As he spoke, Hui Yuhao waved his hand before he flew up and towards the Sea God's Pavilion. "Bye, Senior." Jin Sho waved back at Hui Yuhao. At this moment, Hui Yuhao was already more than 10 meters away. He touched the surface of the lake with his toes as he proceeded towards the Sea God's Pavilion. To Hui Yuhao, this was very easy. However, Jin Sho was filled with admiration and envy. As he watched Hui Yuhao slowly disappear into the distance, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "When can I be as strong as this senior? He can fly over water without even unleashing his martial soul. He's really powerful. He has to be at least a soul emperor." Hui Yuhao naturally didn't know that Jin Sho was evaluating how strong he was. Very soon, he reached Sea God's Island. After reaching the island, he naturally went straight to the Sea God's Pavilion. He didn't know where to register for the blind date. The Sea God's Pavilion was as calm and quiet as ever. The refreshing and fragrant air gave one an invigorating feeling. It was indescribably comfortable. Hui Yuhao knelt down in front of the golden tree and respectfully kowtowed thrice. After this, he stood up and walked into the pavilion. The sea god's pavilion was very quiet right now. After entering, he didn't sense anyone's aura. He couldn't use his spiritual detection either, as he didn't want to alarm the elders. He was feeling a little depressed right now. It was already evening, but he didn't know where to go for the sea god's fated blind date. There wasn't even anyone to ask. However, at this moment, his stomach started growling. He hadn't eaten in a few days, and his stomach was revolting. As he thought of eating, Hui Yuhao started to salivate. The food in the inner courtyard had always been very tempting. To ensure that the students were fully nourished for their cultivation, the food in the inner courtyard had always been made from the best ingredients on the continent, and delicately prepared. Not only was the food nourishing, it was also very tasty. It was one of the programs that the inner courtyard disciples enjoyed most. When they were still at the academy, Shrek's 7 monsters would constantly find excuses to come over to Sea God's Island and have a meal. They wouldn't leave without filling their stomachs. This video will end here.